I've got to take my car for an MOT. It's only down the road. Gonna go on my bike, put the bike in the back of the car, put the car in, and then I come back on my bike, panting and out of breath, and I'll
You've
rejoin you.
never left that rock and roll lifestyle, have you?
So no, I haven't. No, you're right. So that's what I'll be doing.
While you're out, Steve, could you get us a pint of milk as well, please?
Yeah, I'll get a pint of milk. Need anything else? 25 loaves of bread, maybe?
Yeah, something
15
like that.
dozen toilet rolls? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'll be back in a bit.
20 Rothmans.
Tony Chapman, Peter Phillips. I'll see you in a few minutes. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for that fantastic intro,
Thanks
Steve.
a lot. Probably the best one I've done so far. Actually.
Yeah, it probably was. Goodbye. See you later. Well, this is going to be interesting. So, hello, Peter. We've never met before, but I've heard a lot about you. Hi. Heard a lot about you. So, I've been left in a captain's chair, being as Steve is going off, as you can see, with his car key there on a desperate run to get his MOT. Just another thing he's forgotten. Well, the first thing I was going to ask you, well, first of all, why are you in Tuscany? I mean, it's great to see you've got a great background there, and I'm sure it's probably a really beautiful place that you're at. But maybe you could tell us a little bit why you're in Tuscany.
We have a base here as a production company. We're lucky. We got bases in Wales, in Ireland, out on the Aran Islands, in Benidorm in Spain. Albeit that's been dormant for a couple of years, that one, right. And here in Tuscany. So we've based in a farm here in Tuscany. It's lovely. Oh, it's not lovely. It's pouring. It's pouring the rain, actually.
Well, it was raining in Cardiff,
yeah,
but I think it's
now. It's a rehearsal. Yeah. It's a good rehearsal place here.
Some fantastic places you named there. I mean, it must be quite nice to go off to different locations as well. You know. Different environments.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Benidorm's my favourite.
Yeah, I should imagine it would be. Yeah, quite an exciting place to be. So, firstly, what I was going to say is, I think it's on your website. There's a quote where you said that you've never found anybody who would employ you. So, I think that's a brilliant line. It's probably something I would say myself as well.
I achieved a milestone 2 years ago when I got to my 60th birthday without ever having gainful employment.
Yeah, it's great to say that you've never had a proper job. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I don't think anybody would ever have offered me one. Truth be known.
Oh, I'm sure they would. A few of the things that we were going to mention, as Steve just mentioned to me now. I mean, there's so many different things that you're involved with. It's really exciting stuff. But I think one of the things that probably a lot of people would know about would be the Elvis Festival. If we start off at that point, I mean, that's such an interesting thing to do. How did that come about in the first place?
Well, read the book. Read the book, Tony.
Right.
Today, well, on Friday, but I think I think you can get it from today. On Friday, we've just opened a publishing company, and the first book that's being published is the official story of the Porthcawl Elvis Fest.
Fantastic.
So I'll give you. I can't give too much away. You have to read the book.
Sure, no problem. No problem. Just give us a very little taster then.
It started. It's quite a well-known story. It started because of the Grand Pavilion. The Grand Pavilion was under threat of closure in 2004. And a lady called Jan Atkins was the manager of the Porthcawl Pavilion in those days. And she just asked me, any shows, we got any shows that we could take to the pavilion. And I just come back, actually, from the Fargo Film Festival. Kids, if you go to one film festival in your life, go to the one in Fargo, right? And on the way back from the Fargo Film Festival, we were in the Mall of America, the huge shopping mall in Minneapolis, and there was this big Elvis event going on. And I just had the idea to do an award show for Elvis tribute artists. You see, I used to live in Fulham, and there was a pub in Fulham just opposite Parsons Green Tube Station that used to put Elvis tribute artists on. And everybody used to go there because they thought it was a joke. But it wasn't a joke because there's some really good Elvis tribute artists. There's some awful ones. Trust me, it's a broad spectrum of work out there. Yeah. But there are some really good ones. And we wanted to recognize them as music professionals. So I said, let's do an award show for Elvis tribute artists. We'll call it the Elvis. It's a bit like the Grammys for Elvises. We'll have the best 68 special Elvis, the best gospel Elvis, best Vegas Elvis. So it was a show. And then I thought, well, let's make it into a festival, like a mini festival. I know Porthcawl and, the High Tide and the Brentwood got behind it. Everybody else, apart from the High Tide, Nadine at the High Tide, Dave Jones at the Brentwood, and Norman Harris, the printer, who's the partner in the publishing company. Can you see the circularity here?
Yes, definitely, yeah.
Everybody thought it was a stupid bloody idea. It wouldn't work in a million years, apart from those guys. Everybody thinks now it's great, but, in those days they didn't. And it worked. And we sort of outrageously said it's the biggest Elvis festival in Europe. It was the only Elvis festival in Europe at the time. And the BBC came on board. We pitched it through a production company to the BBC, how Porthcawl bizarrely thought it could put on an Elvis festival. And they commissioned it as a radio documentary, but that attracted a guy called Charles Stone, who was Elvis's tour manager. And he was managing a really top Elvis tribute artist in the States called Craig Parker. They came over, and that sort of gave it the sort of oomph it needed. And it's just grown from there. It's now is the biggest Elvis festival in the world. In the world, 35,000 people bringing £6 million in, but unfortunately not this year.
I know it is really sad it can't be this year, but what a fantastic story from that idea where you just saw an Elvis in a shopping mall in America to be in the biggest festival. And it just proves that, I think one of the things that we're about on Cardiff Live is it's the creative ideas that, that we really got to encourage, and entrepreneurs like yourself to do these things. I mean, that just shows what a fantastic event that is, just from a very small idea in the first place. And also you say just a couple of people got involved because a lot of people didn't really back it in the beginning. I'm sure lots of people want to back it and get involved now though.
Oh yeah, it's massive now. It's The other good idea was one that was had on a beach in Sri Lanka during a civil war when I bumped into an Irishman who had somehow managed to get a fridge working. There was no electricity in this place. Beautiful. It's called Aragon Bay. Beautiful place, but it was devastated after the tsunami. I was over there on a charity mission. We set up a small charity in Wales that Steve knows about called Tsunami Relief.
Right.
And we were over there funding an art therapy group. Anyway, long story short, Fergal McGrath, this Irishman, had found a way of getting some sort of hand-driven generator which powered a small fridge which had cold beer in it. So Fergal and I were sitting having a cold beer on this beach with landmines going off up the road. And I was telling him about the Elvis Festival. He said, "Oh, that sounds really interesting." It was about the second year of the Elvis Festival. And we found we knew people because I'd lived in Galway where Fergal came from. And we knew people. We didn't know each other, but we knew mutual friends. And we had this sort of joke going about Father Ted. We were just exchanging Father Ted lines, keeping us sane. And Fergal said, "Wouldn't it be a good idea to do something like your Elvis Festival for Father Ted?" And I said, "Fergal, if we ever get back to Nocturnes, a particularly fine pub in Galway, I might add, let's put it together." And 6 months later, we're sitting in Nocturnes, putting together a Father Ted festival, which is called Ted Fest, and it's still going. It's the craziest, it's the most bizarre thing I've ever been to in my life. I'm very proud of it. Ted Fest, out on the Aran Islands every year. In
Fantastic.
fact, we were 2 weeks before the pandemic hit this year. It's the only festival to have taken place in Ireland this year. Ted Fest.
Brilliant. So I bet it grabbed all the headlines as being the only one at that time. That's fantastic. So any more plans to go through any more festivals? I mean, you've done Father Ted, you've done Elvis. Any other ideas you're thinking of at the moment?
Well, we do the coolest festival is the Welsh Rockabilly Fair that we do the week before the Elvis Festival. Obviously, that's been going 9 years now. Obviously, that didn't happen this year. We do the Benidorm Elvis Fiesta. An Elvis festival in Benidorm. Think Elvis is on mobility scooters. That's a great event if you go to that one. We do, actually, with USW, we do, who've been involved from the start, we do the International Vampire Film and Art Festival in Transylvania.
Brilliant.
Which that's been going 5 years, but obviously it's virtual this year. Actually, people want to get involved. They don't actually have to go to Transylvania this time.
No.
It's going to be online. All the films that are being submitted this year are being screened online. Previous winners. It's over the 2 days of Halloween, 30th and 31st of October. There's an academic conference that has been run by the State College of Florida. Online, it's all online, but there's some cool stuff. There's like role-playing games and things. But you must go to Sigiswara in Transylvania. That's a fantastic place.
It sounds amazing. I mean, obviously your stuff is based in live festivals, so the COVID thing has changed it completely. But it's nice to hear that you're moving that over to online and keeping the things going online, because this is a big problem for a lot of people now, isn't it? Particularly with live events.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think people, will want to go to. It might work for the Vampire Festival, because it's a film-based festival. That could work. But you can't run festivals online. You can't do gigs online. It's the live phenomena that's missing, and hopefully it'll be back soon. But we don't know. But it's given us a chance, because it's two sides to Xanadu, the production company. One is festivals, which is we're just on hold playing around with online stuff, but it has given us a chance to develop the other side of it. The concert stuff, the theatre production. That's why we're here in Italy at the moment, because we've got a stage musical going into rehearsal. In about 2 hours' time, the director's on a flight from Stansted as we speak. So it's given us a chance to develop that sort of stuff and set up a book publishing company. So we're plodding on.
So what you say about the book publishing company? Now, you've already mentioned that you've done a book about the Elvis Fest at Porthcawl. So what is the plan for the book company? What sort of books have you have some plans yourself, or are you going to take on board other people's books? What's the sort of future for that?
Sorry, Tony, the sound wasn't great on that.
Yeah,
Say again?
Sure, no problem. I'm talking about the book company that you've basically set up. You've already mentioned the book concerning the Elvis Fest. What are your future plans for books? Are they going to be generated by yourself, or are you encouraging other people to get in touch with you maybe to publish their books? What's the sort of future of that company?
The other book, I'm looking around, I just saw a copy of it somewhere. It goes back to the beach in Sri Lanka where I met Fergal McGrath.
Right.
And we knew people from Galway, because I'd lived in Galway for a year writing a book about, it was the biography of Richard Martin, Humanity Dick Martin, who was an Irishman and from Connemara, owned Connemara actually. And all animal rights law in the world stem back to Richard Martin.
Right.
He pioneered animal rights because he also was a politician, as well as being the champion duelist of Ireland, and living in spectacular insolvency, his only income being smuggling commission. He was a complete rogue character, but he pioneered animal rights. Only man to have called a donkey as a witness in a court of law. He was the driving force behind the RSPCA, who embarrassingly acknowledged that, but because he was thrown out of Parliament the year later for rigging the Galway election, and in the court of inquiry, his one and only defence to rigging the Galway election was, Jesus, lads, everybody rigs the Galway election.
Brilliant.
Anyway, Richard Martin, amazing character. And I'd written this book 17 years ago now. And I used to do book tours. The Americans love the story of Richard Martin. And it's funny how things come about. 10 years ago, a friend of mine called Mickey Martin, who is distantly related to Richard Martin, had the idea to write some songs about the story. And we toured it only once on the west coast of Ireland, around castles and arts fairs and things. as a musical narration. I'd tell a bit of the story, and then Mickey and some musicians would sing songs about it. And we always had a plan to develop it as a stage musical. And we've had many a good time over here in Tuscany, where Mickey lives. Sitting under an olive tree, drinking wine, thinking about a script to do this stage musical. We never get past the first page, truth be known, until the lockdown. And I was literally on a Zoom call like this to Mickey and said, "Oh, Jesus, Mickey, what are you up to?" He said, "Well, I'm stuck in lockdown." So I said, "Let's try to develop the script." And it took us about 10 weeks, but we developed the script of the musical. Humanity Dick the Musical. Think of it as an Irish Hamilton. That's the strategy.
Right,
the
okay.
Irish Hamilton. Just thought of that. Write that down.
Yeah, write it down quick.
Yeah, that's a good one. So it's sort of going against the grain. We're probably the only lunatics in the Western world who are actually developing a stage musical at the moment. But we thought we'd swim against the tide on this. And it's been we've got a great director called Alex Howarth attached to it. He's flying in today when it's going into R&D. We've got actors coming in, and it's all going into R&D the next week. The plan is to actually open our own theatre in Galway.
Right.
We're going to open up like a purpose-built. Richard Martin opened his own theatre in 1780 something in Kerwin's Lane in Galway, which is just round the corner from Nocturne's, the pub that we put everything in. Can you see all this?
It's all connected.
It's all connected. It's like a Billy Connolly monologue. It all sort of ruts together at the end. We're looking at how we can do COVID-friendly theatre, and one way of doing that is go back to 18th century theatre. You didn't used to sit in stalls. It was a much bigger area. Because bearing in mind, in those days, nobody wanted to go near anybody anyway, because they all stunk and they were all like infected. Distancing in those days was the matter of course anyway. So the theatres would have been a lot more, a bit like the Globe. It was much more of a raucous, and with some great venues in Galway we're looking at. So a lot more sort of theatre dining with balconies and lots of dueling. Dueling's coming back. We're actually going to open. We're going to open a paintball dueling field in Galway.
Brilliant.
I just made that up, but I'll write that down as well. That's
another idea. The ideas are flowing, I can see.
Dueling will come back. If you look at, a side effect of COVID is the courts are all glued up. The waiting list for courts, civil disputes. You try suing somebody, take you 10 years to get to a court these days. Dueling is the answer. That's the way to settle civil disputes. Like gentlemen. I can see a re-emergence of dueling.
Paintball dueling, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, real dueling. That's the way to solve your disputes, not a small thing. Do it like gentlemen.
Brilliant. It can seem, in this conversation, I think you've already come up with, you've had lots of ideas, but you can see you've already come up with about another 3 or 4 while I've been talking to you. So would you call yourself an entrepreneur, do you think?
No, that tends to imply you're wealthy, and I'm certainly not wealthy. I don't know, entrepreneur. In a previous life, I was a partner of a venture capital company, so we used to sort of, weird sort of businesses. I don't know what an entrepreneur is. I suppose it's somebody who can't get a job. So if your definition of entrepreneur is somebody who can't get a job,
yeah.
In fact, a friend of mine, an old friend of mine called Gareth Davis, Gareth and I invented a board game called Haggle. It was the best-selling new board game of 1993, right? You can still get it on. My son bought one on eBay the other day. And Gareth went on to much bigger and better things and he's retired now, but he was a headhunter, like big executive type headhunting. And I can remember having a beer with him a couple of years ago. We were running, here's a great festival. We only did it as a one-off, but we should redo it. We did a spaghetti western film festival in Fishguard, where Gareth's wife was doing some voluntary work for the little cinema they got there. And she said, "Oh, well, they only got a 35mm camera and a projector." I said, "Oh, spaghetti westerns." we had 3 fantastic days in Fishguard in the middle of the hurricane in February, watching spaghetti western movies. And the whole town got behind it, and they had like a spaghetti western shootout in Lidl's. It was phenomenally great 3 days. Anyway, Gareth, over this, we were having dinner one night, and so he said, "You're unemployable." And my wife was quite intrigued by this statement, and they actually then, I didn't say anything for half an hour. They were just trying to think of jobs that I could do, and they only could find one. And it was a London taxi driver. It's the only job they said you could possibly do is drive a London taxi. Because you know your way around London. And you're opinionated. That's the only thing you could do.
And talking of cabbie drivers, on our other side of the screen here, you can see he's appeared. Steve Johnson.
Scabby drivers, I would say.
Has rush back via bike.
Steve?
Pardon?
Did you pass your MOT?
I put it in.
Did you pass your MOT?
Not yet, no. It's only just gone in. I've just come back on the Johnson bike, which is quite a machine, as you can imagine.
It's not a Johnson bike, though, is it? It's a Steve Johnson bike, not a Boris Johnson bike.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
let's get that clear.
It's not a Norman Tebbit bike either, may I say. Peter, obviously, it's great you're in Tuscany, and it's kind of exciting, but obviously there's certain technical ramifications. I don't know whether Tony's asked you about this, obviously, yet, but do you remember how we first met?
I do. You were involved in the local radio station in Bridgend.
That's correct.
Yes? Hang on, the connection's really bad on this end.
It's okay. I just have to edit it.
Sound like you are. Sorry, say again.
Sorry.
You hold it up like a card, like Bob Dylan. That'd be the way to do it.
Can you...
No. Are you still hearing me, or?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't hear you. Type the question. Type the question.
Yeah. I will.
That's the way to do it.
I will type. Okay.
Are you still hearing me, or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't hear you. Type the question. Type the question.
Yeah. I will.
That's the way to do it.
I will type. Okay. Sorry about the typing noises. I can probably edit them out.
That speed typing course did you well, Steve.
It did, didn't it?
Oh yes, Bridge FM. Yeah. Gosh, there was that would have been the new board game. We did 2 board games. We did Haggle, and we did a game called Spread Bet, which was like Trivial Pursuit but using spread betting. I bumped into somebody at a party once who said they'd lost £26,000 the week before playing my board game. Some sort of city. It was very much aimed at the city type. Our business partner was a company called City Index, actually, a spread betting company. So people just used to bet on the length of the Titanic. It's a quite good game. One player had a think of, it looked like Trivial Pursuit. You pick a card and it had 6 questions and roll a dice and number 4. And that was like the length of the Titanic. And you'd have to sort of come up with a guess of what you thought the length of the Titanic. And the other players would then bet whether it was higher or lower. So it's simple as that. Yeah, it was a good game, that. We actually used to do a live version of Spread. We used to run the City Index Spread Bet Championships, which always ended up in a fight. It was always like Bearings used to end up fighting Kleinwort Benson or something at the bar. We should resurrect that. We actually used it. We used that in Haggle for. We had a management development company. It's been my most successful venture. Well, it's nice to be able. Things like the Porthcawl Elvis Festival, people laugh about it. It's a fantastic event, and an awful lot of people get an awful lot of joy. A lot of people make a lot of money out of the Porthcawl Elvis Festival. Not me, I might add, but a lot of people, get a lot of it. I've noticed that a lot of people are genuinely gutted that the Elvis Festival's not happening this year, and it's not just chip shops in Porthcawl. It was people who really it's a highlight of the year for a lot of people. Headfest is great as well. The Legionnaires. You mean the Sweet Inspirations? She's passed away now, Myra Smith, who was a fantastic singer, but a hustler at pool. She won 20 quid off me playing pool. I lost 20 quid to one of the Sweet Inspirations. There's a claim to fame. They came the second year of the Porthcawl Elvis Festival, and people still talk about it because they used to wander around the pubs and just go on stage. So suddenly, like an ETA, suddenly looked round, they had the Sweet Inspiration standing behind him. And it's run, actually, from the very first year, the Trinity Church do a Elvis gospel service on the Sunday morning. And I can remember going to the one because the Sweet Inspirations went to it, and they were singing, I think it was the Lord's Prayer a cappella in Trinity Church. It was fantastic.
Tap it as fast as I can here. Whoops, typo.
Yeah, the Elvis Festival does attract people from around the world, but not as many as you think it is. The Porthcawl Elvis, I think, around about year 5 of the Elvis Festival, all the hotels in Porthcawl were full. Treco was full. You had as many, so I thought that's probably we've hit the ceiling here. This is as many people that can come to the Porthcawl Elvis Festival, but it's grown year in, year out, and the penny only dropped because at the time I was living in the States. I was living in Austin, and so I didn't used to come back. I used to come back for the Elvis Festival basically, and I was standing with a guy called Phil Rickson, who you'll read in the book about the Elvis Festival. Phil Rickson was very pivotal. He was the mayor of Porthcawl the first year of the Elvis Festival. And I remember I got a phone call out of the blue. He said, "Oh, I'm Phil Rickson. I'm the mayor of Porthcawl. I've heard about this Elvis Festival. What can I do to help?" I said, "Well, tell you what you can do. If you and the mayoress would renew your wedding vows in a faithful recreation of the wedding scene from Blue Hawaii on the seafront, that would be great." And in fairness to Phil and Cheryl Rickson, they did it. And people were like holding this gazebo down because it was blowing a gale. It was covered in like flowers. There were lays flying everywhere. Probably like into the flight path of Cardiff Airport were like lays. But it was a good publicity stunt because it got the first Porthcawl Elvis Festival on the front page of newspapers in the States. Anyway, Phil. So. Phil passed away a few years ago. And a year before he died, I was standing on Salt Lake car park with him in the middle of the Elvis Festival having a coffee. And we were at the harbour, and he pointed over at Salt Lake and said, "That's why it's grown." He said, "Just look at the coaches." And when the Elvis Festival's become an institution in the valleys, which I'm very proud of, nobody believes me, but I actually come from Abercynon. And to see the valley, I didn't realise it. I was talking to a lady, she was from the valleys. She said, "Oh, the Elvis Festival." I said, "Oh, yeah." She said, "It's an institution." She said, "Everybody just descends on Porthcawl." And what Phil Rickson said was, that's how Porthcawl used to be when he was a kid. All the coaches used to come down from the valleys. So it's great that, it's sort of given Porthcawl a sort of jolt in the arm. So next question. No, we don't have the footage. There's a great picture in the book. You have to buy the book to see a picture of Phil Rickson and Cheryl renewing their wedding vows. It's called Viva Porthcawl, available in all good bookshops from Friday. Tell you what we are doing this year, because I was saying that Tony, I'm not a great lover of virtual festivals. I think it works for our Vampire Festival because a lot of that's film-based. But we looked at what we can do for the Elvis Festival, Porthcawl Elvis Festival this year. So we've got a pop-up website. It'll appear like Brigadoon at 9 o'clock on Friday and disappear probably about 2:30 on Monday when it's a co-Elvis breakfast at the high tide. But the content's really good because we were putting the book together. So we were sort of going down lots of rabbit holes looking at old footage. So there's a really cool website. Just go to the Porthcawl Elvis, elvis.co.uk, the main Porthcawl site, 9 o'clock on Friday, and it'll have morphed into this a pop-up Pop-Tart of delight of Elvis music. And actually no Elvis music because of rights issues. If you're listening Elvis Pres the Enterprise, there's no rights issues. We don't play Elvis. It's not real. It's great stuff. And I think there's lots of great pictures there, slideshows. Well, University of South Wales have been sending, Becky Matthews has been sending a team of students to the Elvis Festival for years. And she sent me hundreds of photos. They're absolutely fantastic. We put them all into a slideshow on this pop-up site. There's a rerun of the original radio documentary about Porthcawl. What else is there? It's some great stuff, like YouTube stuff, and a great article at the Independent ran a couple of years ago. So go to the Porthcawl Elvis Festival. You can't go out, so you might as well sit at home. Make sure you get your booze in before 10 o'clock. Because I've heard they got some sort of, have they closed the pubs or something in Wales? I've heard that. Do you know the last time the government did that? You need to be careful over there. The government passed a law to restrict licensing hours during the First World War because all the munition workers were going on the pop, so they were getting them back into the pubs, right? So they passed this emergency law. It was repealed in 1989.
Whoa.
70 years. Just be careful there, children. Be careful. They're all Puritans. Boris Johnson, for all his bottom, he's a Puritan. They don't want people to drink. It's a typical day. Well, it's always interesting to see where you wake up. That's the start point. I don't know. It depends on what you're doing. So I don't think there is a typical day. You probably want to ask my wife. Well, your working lifestyle, ongoing projects. Well, ongoing projects at the moment. We've got Humanity Dick, the Irish Hamilton, which I've written that down actually. The Irish Hamilton. That's going to be. So that's the big live project. And we're opening a purpose-built 18th century theatre venue in Galway, and a paintball dueling field. So that's taken up a lot of time. So we've got the R&D for 5 days now. That'll mean another redraft of the script. So I'll be working on that. Putting the Elvis Festival book together. Although I didn't write it, but a lady called Emily Price wrote it. But sort of going through that process, I thought maybe we should do the same for TED Fest. So I think I might write the story of TED Fest myself. I would float around Ireland for 40 days and 40 nights. There's a moral in this story, children. Don't go on live radio when you're in drink. The day after the first TED Fest, which was a wonder to behold, there was a fantastic broadcaster. Steve probably knows him. A fantastic broadcaster in Ireland called Jerry Ryan. Used to do a mid-morning show. All of Ireland used to listen to Jerry Ryan. And Jerry latched on to TED Fest, thought it was fantastic. And he really got the thing off to a flying start for us. And we were still in the bar of the Arran Island Hotel at about 9:15 on the Monday morning. It's like an after show. When somebody's come running in from the co-op, they got like an island cooperative. It's the only decent telephone line on the Arran Islands in those days, saying, "You got the Jerry Ryan show." I thought, I forgot about that. So myself and a guy called Ken Robertson, who was the PR guy for Paddy Powell, who had sponsored TED Fest, we walked over to the cooperative, and we were drunk. I have to admit, we were still drunk. We just got out of the bar at 9:15 in the morning and straight onto this live radio. And Jerry Ryan was laughing, but he said, "Oh, you can't keep that festival on that stupid island. You're going to have to bring it to the mainland." And I was trying to be sensible. I'm trying to, no. I said, that it's the whole point of it. It's on an island. That's why it's fantastic. We've created this craggy island. And he said, no. I said, I'll tell you what, Jerry. I said, if Paddy Power's here, because Ken's sitting next to me, will sponsor it. And Ken Roberts is looking at me. I said, because they bought the milk float that was used in the Father Ted episode. I said, if Paddy Power's here, we'll sponsor it. Lend us their milk float. We will bring Ted Fest to the mainland for 40 days and 40 nights. We will bring Ted Fest to the mainland. So Jerry's going, are you going to do that then, Ken? He said, yeah. Ken's going, yeah, we'll do that. So, okay. Well, I'm walking back to the pub, right? Phone rings, which was quite a surprise because the service out there was terrible. Hey, phone rings. This guy said, he said, oh, you don't know me. He said, I've just got your number from the Jerry Ryan show. My name's Porrick Delaney. I'm from Down Syndrome Island. I said, what? Like an island for Down syndrome? I said, well, how Dickensian is that? He said, no. He said, Down Syndrome Ireland. We are a charity for Down syndrome work in Ireland. Are you stupid? I said, oh, okay. He said, were you serious about this? Well, I said, I wasn't not serious. I used to be in school with Ian Botham, the cricketer, right? Well, I wasn't in school with Ian. Ian used to go to Yeovil comp, and I went to Elmhurst Grammar School, so we used to play cricket. And I sort of kept in touch with both of them, and he used to do those huge walks, and I'm thinking, yeah, we could do something like that maybe. And I said, look, all seriousness, Porrick, let me have a think about it. And next time I'm in Ireland, in a couple of months, let's chat. And we met in Nocturnes, which was where Ted Fest was put together. And I'd thought it through then. I was this milk float was just totally knackered. You had to push it everywhere. It became a running joke. It was on all the news footage of people pushing this milk float around. So I thought, well, if you get a hefty bunch of blokes, they could push this milk float maybe 20 miles a day. And I'm sitting on a kitchen table, not dissimilar to this one, before you had Google Maps or anything. And I had a bit of string and a big map of Ireland. I got a bit of string. And I thought, well, if you went from Galway, so, you go from Galway up to County Mayo and Sligo, and then up to Donegal, and then into Derry, and over to Belfast, and down to Dublin, and then you cut across, then cross country, you end up in Cork, and then back up. I added it all up. It's 821 miles. Now, if you divide 40 into 821 miles, it's just over 40. Just over 20 miles a day. So we did it. So Porrick and I are now sitting in Nocturnes pub, which the more I think about it, Nocturnes seems to be my creative hub. I gravitate to Nocturnes, fine pub in Galway. Right? Well, it's actually the townhouse of Humanity Dick Martin, you see. Richard Martin, that I wrote about, that's where he lived. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling on here. So we said, look, Porrick, the idea was you can't get a team of people to push the milk float. I said, get a different team each day and, get companies involved. And Porrick, who's become a good friend of mine now, is like an organizational genius, a man who descended into insanity during these 40 days I had. But it was just the most fantastic 40 days, honestly. Every morning, we'd have a different team, like Hewlett-Packard would turn up with a team of people and a big check for like 50 grand or something for Down Syndrome Island. And we had an ambassador every day, either a kid or a young adult with Down syndrome who was the ambassador. They used to drive the milk float. And I tell you what, you could just write a book about the story. By the time it became a huge thing in Ireland. By the time we got to Dublin, which was about just over halfway through, they closed O'Connell Street on a Sunday. I remember closing O'Connell Street. Yeah, it was great. So you asked me, what's the greatest achievement? Probably that. Just a stupid idea when you're drunk that turned into this fantastic project that raised about £500,000 for Down syndrome. Really raised awareness. I can remember there was one story that. It was a pharmaceutical company that were pushing this. And I forget, it was in the middle of nowhere, near Clonmel somewhere, in the arse end of nowhere. But a glorious day. And obviously the PR company behind this pharmaceutical company, which were American-owned, and obviously said to their chief exec, you want to come over for this? There's a good bit of publicity. So this guy turned up, and the ambassador that day was a young kid with Down syndrome whose mother was one of the cleaners in their offices in Dublin. And he had eye problems. So when we were chatting away and there was music blaring away, we always used to play the Seekers. The only thing we had, the soundtrack we had was like a cassette, the Seekers' greatest hits. So like Morningtown Ride was playing, and Fireman at the Engine. And because anyway, this chief exec got talking to the mother of the lad with Down syndrome, and she was telling him about the eye problem. Anyway, I heard that night, every night was an after-show party with a milk float. I heard that this guy had just covered all the medical treatment for this kid, whatever operation he needed. You know, it's just things like that that resonate. What have we got there? Any advice? How'd you manage? How'd you make your ideas a reality? Mickey, come and say hello to Cardiff Television.
Hello.
Mickey Martin.
Hello. Can you hear us? No.
No. Oh, I can hear you now. That's weird.
Hey, there you go. Fantastic. Mickey, it's if Tony shows you his shirt, just Tony show Mickey your shirt. Keep Cardiff live, Mickey. Keep Cardiff live, Mickey. That's the thing, yeah. Okay. Can you hear me, Mickey?
This isn't social distancing.
Yeah. Mickey, can I just
a bit more space from Peter here now. Now we're okay.
Can I ask you quickly, Mickey? What is it like working with Peter Phillips?
Peter Phillips is an absolute pleasure to work with, and
Liar.
And I'll keep saying that as long as he's standing beside me.
Yeah, you're rather close, aren't you? You're rather close.
Actually, this man who has written the songbook for Humanity Dick the musical,
Great.
The Irish Hamilton. Mickey also put a band together called Look Away Dixieland. That was an Irish bluegrass band that played Elvis. You must remember that, Steve.
Yeah, I do. We'd love to interview you, Mickey, at some point as well. I know you're in a hurry now, the pair of you, but maybe get the pair of you together.
There's various authorities around the world waiting to interview me as well.
You have to speak to his people. He doesn't just do stuff like that.
No, I'll speak to your people.
What do you think I'm doing in Italy?
this witness protection program.
I'll tell you what. While you're both together, I know you're in a hurry. Yeah, just do you want to just, Mickey? I'll ask you this one since you're with Peter. Peter I was just asking Peter how he makes his ideas reality. You know, what would be your advice for people with sort of entrepreneurs?
You're breaking up.
You'd have to go back to time.
Can you hear me?
We have a problem.
Right, okay.
No, you're all cracked up.
It's the problems. I think it's the mic link on this, and I don't think the mic.
It's not what it cracked up to be. I tell you. Well, actually, it is what it's cracked up to be.
Hey, you don't need that unless you can't hear it. Making ideas a reality. How do you make an idea a reality? Drink. you go to Nocturnes, a fine pub in Galway, and you sit there with an idea. You say, how do we make that a reality? I came out of the toilet in Nocturnes once with an idea in my mind. Wouldn't it be great to have Quentin Tarantino direct your funeral? How do you make that a reality?
I suppose you got to die first.
You're probably going to have to make this the last question.
Yep, last one.
Well, yeah, any comments? Craig Hooper. Yeah, Craig Hooper, yeah. Yeah, Craig. I've known Craig for years. Ask Craig about how we left him in the Nevada desert in a gold lame jacket. Ask him about the conversation he had with a local sheriff in Nevada about why he was walking across the Nevada desert in a gold lame jacket. We had a great night. I can remember going out with Craig with Deep Purple in Nice one night. That was a great night. Hey, Craig's a great guy. It was Craig and I that put the Vampire Festival together, and we have worked well with USW. You know, they've been involved from the start with the Vampire Festival. We worked with USW with the Elvis Festival as well. So yeah, we love USW. What's that? Yeah, sure, no problem. The Irish Hamilton. You heard it first here, children. We're off to go dueling now. Literally, we are off to find dueling pistols. Mickey, if I tell you, before I forget, balloons. Burst balloons. That's the sound effect. Anyway, guys, Steve, let me have the link when you put this out, and I'll get my lawyers onto it. Okay.
Will do. Thanks,
Thank
Peter.
you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.